Ladies and gentlemen, the NBA season is over, which means it's time to grade these teams and how they did in the season. It's time to talk about how they did. All right, it's time to kind of review them. See what they did good, see what they did bad. Did they fail? Did they succeed? Did they meet our expectations? What did they do? We're going to talk about what they did. We're going to get it started with a team that did a lot. A lot of, weird stuff, good stuff, bad stuff in the last few years in general. But we're going to talk about the Dallas Mavericks. The Dallas Mavericks, I'm going to give them a C+, because they didn't win games. The Dallas Mavericks did not win games. They won maybe 15 games. I don't know. An insignificant amount of games is what they won. But they did have Cooper Flagg. Cooper Flagg was great this year. All right, they had Cooper Flagg, and they traded Anthony Davis. Okay, they traded Anthony Davis. They got rid of Nico Harrison as their GM. Those are a couple of good things for the Dallas Mavericks because they've kind of now just scrubbed themselves of this stench of trading away Luka Doncic. So good for them. All right, so I'm gonna give them a C+. Again, can't rate them too high. They didn't really win any games, and they didn't achieve their goal, which was to compete for a championship. But they did kind of get rid of some of the controversies of that team. Moving on to the Denver Nuggets. The Denver Nuggets, I gave a B. Gave the Denver Nuggets a B because they were pretty solid throughout the regular season. But they weren't good enough for the postseason. So I can't give them any higher than a B. They were consistent. They were solid. They were the 3 seed. They were even kind of good without Jokic. Jokic missed 16 games, something like that, in January, and they stayed the 3 seed. They were the 3 seed when he went down. They were the 3 seed when he came back. So solid, but they did get absolutely embarrassed in the postseason by the Minnesota Timberwolves. They lost in 6 to the Minnesota Timberwolves, who were missing Anthony Edwards, Dante DiVincenzo, Ayo Dosunmu, some other players. The Minnesota's missing half their team, and they beat Denver. So that's not that good. Next up, the Golden State Warriors. I gave a C because, there's nothing really good about their season. They made the plan, so it wasn't absolutely horrendous. But Jimmy Butler got hurt. They were a playing team. They finally traded Jonathan Kuminga, so that's cool. But all in all, the Warriors, not a very good season. So, they get a C. Next up, the Houston Rockets. I gave them a B. I gave the Houston Rockets a B because they were, what were they, the 5 seed? Yeah, they were the 5 seed throughout the season. Kind of fell below expectation, but they didn't have a point guard all year. Fred VanVleet was hurt. Didn't play a single game, a single minute, a single second in this season. Steven Adams got hurt as well, so that's bad. They lost in somewhat embarrassing fashion to the Lakers in the first round when I'm pretty sure they were the favorites to win. Kevin Durant only played 1 game in the playoffs. So they kind of fell below expectation. They were a first-round exit. People expected them to be better, but they dealt with a lot of injuries, and they still won quite a few basketball games. I think they won, what did they win, 50 games? So they get a B. Next up, the Los Angeles Clippers. I gave them a C+. They were quite the different team from the start of the year from the start of the season to the end of the season. They start the season. They got Kawhi Leonard. They got Brook Lopez, James Harden, Bradley Beal, Chris Paul. And they waived Chris Paul. No, they didn't even waive him. They sent him home and then sent him out of the country. They sent him to Toronto, and he promptly retired. Bradley Beal broke his hip 5 seconds into the season. James Harden requested a trade and got it. And Brook Lopez was washed. So it was really Kawhi Leonard hooping. for a lot of this season. They got Darius Garland. They got Benedict Mathurin. They ended up with the 5th pick in the draft. So, quite a lot of trash things happened to the Clippers this season, whether it be injuries or trade requests or just sending Chris Paul home. But then, by the end of the season, hey, they've got a little bit of potential to build on some things. Again, Darius Garland, Benedict Mathurin, 5th pick in the draft. So, and they were a playing team. I gave them a C+. They get a C+. Now, moving on to the LA team that matters in the NBA, the Los Angeles Lakers, I gave a B+. To be honest, I think they performed a little bit better than I thought they would. They dealt with quite a lot of injuries the first few months of the season. I think they won, 53, 52, 51, 50 games, something like that. They were the 4 seed. They beat the Rockets in the first round, which I don't think they were expected to do, especially when they didn't have Luka Doncic the entire playoffs. They then got swept by the Oklahoma City Thunder, but that's to be expected. That's not really a knock on them, to be honest. Overall, a weird year for them. They looked good to start the season. The first few weeks, they looked great, even though they were playing without LeBron. Then around December, they looked absolutely awful. They picked things back up by the end of the season. They had a first-round win, a first-round series win. First time in a long time the Lakers won in the first round. And, then they got swept. So I'm going to give them a B+. Then we get to the Memphis Grizzlies. The Memphis Grizzlies, I gave an F because, what could you say about their season? It was horrendously terrible. They played terrible basketball, and they didn't end up trading Ja Morant. So, is there really anything positive to say about Memphis in terms of the season that they just had? Not really. Then the Minnesota Timberwolves. I gave a B+. They played some mostly good basketball throughout the season. They were only the 6th seed. But they get to the playoffs. They upset the Denver Nuggets. And then they had a somewhat competitive series with the San Antonio Spurs, given the fact that they were injured. Minnesota with a pretty okay season, regular season at least. It'll be interesting to see where they go from here. Because it really feels like they're not, it really feels like they don't have any more room with this current roster to get better. Like they're not, it doesn't feel like they've got room for improvement with who they currently have. Seems like they got to make some trades, perhaps. Next up, the New Orleans Pelicans. I gave an F+ simply because they have Derek Queen and Jeremiah Fears. They could have had a first-round pick. I'm pretty sure they traded it away. That's exactly what they did. They traded away their first-round pick. Granted, that was last season, but carries over to this season because they were terrible. So that's not good. Traded away Jose Alvarado for a graham cracker and some whipped cream. I don't even know who they got or what they got for Jose Alvarado. And they were just pretty awful. So F+ for them. Again, they got Derek Queen, Jeremiah Fears. So that's where the plus is coming from. But generally a terrible season. Then the Oklahoma City Thunder. I gave them an A-. They were a fantastic team throughout the regular season. And a fantastic team throughout the playoffs. Obviously, they lost in the Western Conference Finals to a team that I'm sure they were favored. I'm sure they were favored over to win the series. Not really going to knock them too much for losing to the Spurs. They went 7. It was a compelling series. They dealt with injuries, and they also dealt with having Chet Holmgren on their team while playing against Victor Wembanyama. For some reason, Chet Holmgren only averages 10 points a game when he plays Victor Wembanyama. So that put him at a disadvantage as well. Nevertheless, the defending champions are the champions no more. They lost, and you got to knock a point or two for that. So relatively great season in general, though. So good for OKC. Maybe they'll come back next season and become 2-time champs. Next up is my Phoenix Suns. I gave them a B+. I gave them a B+ because you got to look at what they were projected to do. Okay, were they some great team? Absolutely not. But you got to look at what the predictions, the projections were prior to the season. Ladies and gentlemen, CBS Sports said the only team the Suns were going to be better than was the Sacramento Kings. And the Suns made the playoffs. So anytime that you're projected to barely be better than the Sacramento Kings and you make the playoffs, that's a successful season in my opinion. Okay, it really is. The Phoenix Suns get a B+. Pretty fun season to be honest. As a Suns fan, I had a lot of fun this season watching them play. Next up, the Trailblazers, or the Jailblazers, because their coach got arrested one game into the season. That's kind of crazy. That's really crazy. And then they had Tiago Splitter as their head coach. They had a pretty successful season compared to what they've done recently, which is not win games. They won games this year. They made the playoffs. They were the 8th seed. They went to 5. They were the 8th seed. They just beat my Suns in the play-in. They were the 7 seed. Lost to the Spurs in 5. Not really much to say about it. They were never going to beat the Spurs. But pretty good season, all things considered, from the Trailblazers, except for the fact that they didn't then give Tiago Splitter the head coaching position. Now he's going to go coach the Chicago Bulls. The Sacramento Kings, I gave an F- because not only were they bad, they weren't even trying to really be bad. We see why all these other teams that are in the lottery because they tanked. The Sacramento Kings are in the lottery because they're just not that good. They're not that good. They won like 2 games, maybe all year. What can you say about Sacramento? I think genuinely, I'm 18 years old. I think the Kings have only made the playoffs one time since I've been born. I'm so serious. So, Sacramento, not that good. And worst of all for the Kings, honestly, is that they were really bad and they didn't even get a top 3 pick. I think they've got the 7th pick in the draft. I was rooting for them to get the number 1 pick. I was very disappointed when they didn't get it. Next up, the San Antonio Spurs. I gave them an A. It would have been an A+, but they lost in the finals. Incredible season from the Spurs. Apparently, they weren't projected to be as good as they were. I don't think anyone thought they were going to be as good as they were, but some people were questioning if they were going to make the playoffs at the start of the season. I was like, what? What? I don't know. To me, sometimes a team just has too much talent to fail. Too much talent to not be good, and the Spurs had enough talent to be great, and they were phenomenal. So I don't even know why people were saying they weren't going to, are they even going to make the playoffs? I don't know. That was kind of crazy. But not only did they make the playoffs, they dominated in the playoffs. They beat the Toronto Raptors. The Portland Trailblazers in 5. They beat the Timberwolves in 6. And then in the Western Conference Finals, they beat the defending NBA champions in 7 games. They went to the finals. They lost in 5. They made a few big mistakes. Hey, it happens. They're a young team. They didn't win in the finals, but to me, it's not that big of a deal. The Spurs, they lost. Okay. Their best 3 players are 22, 21, and 20 years old each. So, to me, it's an accomplishment that they even made the finals. Did they lose? Sure. But to me, that's not that big of a deal when it comes to this Spurs team. So I gave them an A. And then last but not least, the Utah Jazz. The Utah Jazz had a great season. They won 9 games, but they didn't want to win games. So that's okay. I gave them a B. Because not only did they not win games when they were trying to not win games, they didn't win games so successfully that they now have the 2nd pick in the draft. They also traded for Jaren Jackson Jr. midway through the season. So I think the Jazz have set themselves up great to have a pretty good next season. I'm not going to be surprised if they make the playoffs, all right? They really could. Like I just said about the Spurs, sometimes teams have too much talent to be bad. Sometimes they have too much talent to not be good. That's this Jazz team, This Jazz team is kind of too talented to fail, in my opinion. When you look at their roster, they got Keontae George, they got Lauri Markkanen, they got Jaren Jackson Jr., they got Ace Bailey, they got Bryce Sensabaugh, they got they're going to have the second pick in the draft. Could be, Darren Peterson. Could be Cam Boozer. They're setting themselves up great. Or they have set themselves up great. So I gave Utah a B for this season. And there you have it. Those are the ratings. Let's go over them one more time. The Dallas Mavericks get a C+. The Denver Nuggets get a B. The Golden State Warriors get a C. Rockets get a B. The Clippers get a C+. The Lakers get a B+. The Grizzlies get an F. Minnesota gets a B+. New Orleans gets an F+. OKC, A-. Phoenix, B+. The Trailblazers get a B. The Sacramento Kings get an F-. San Antonio Spurs get an A. And the Utah Jazz get a B. So, tell me what you think about these ratings.